time. He also tried to get his supporters fired up by framing the election as a choice between two very different directions for this country.
If you reject the notion that this nation's promise is reserved for the few, your voice must be heard in this election. If you reject the notion that our government is forever beholden to the highest bidder, you need to stand up in this election. If you believe that new plants and factories can dot our landscape, that new energy can power our future, that new schools can provide ladders of opportunity to this nation of dreamers, if you believe in a country where everyone gets a fair shot and everyone does their fair share and everyone plays by the same rules, then I need you to vote this November.
Joining me to talk about that, Republican strategist Ana Navarro and Democratic strategist Maria Cardona. I wish I was with you guys. It's not the same.
We do too.
I know, it's not the same without you here in person, Suzanne.
They took away the CNN grill. It was a great time. The last 3 days or so, we had a chance to chat about all this. It was interesting yesterday. The crowd certainly responded to the president, and he made this case. Give him more time, essentially. Give him more time. He's not done yet. He got a mess, and he really needs more time to fix this. And was it convincing to you?
Look, it was convincing, I think, to the base. I don't think it reached the independent voters as much. We saw it in a focus group that was being held at the CNN grill. The independent voters seem to be precisely in the same place they were before these two conventions, which is not a good thing. I guess we're still fighting for a very small pocket of voters. It was a hard speech for Obama to give. I think he did what he needed to do. He, it's not an easy thing to go out there after having sold hope and change 4 years ago and now have to sell, well, gee, guys, don't give up on me. I sure hope you don't change me. And that's what, he had to do last night. And he also was competing against the Barack Obama from 4 years ago, the Barack Obama from 8 years ago, and the Bill Clinton from the night before, and Michelle Obama. We heard some very good speeches at that convention. Barack Obama's was not the best speech, but I think it was a good enough speech.
And Maria, talk a little bit about, he talked that you are the change. You're the ones who changed everything. He kind of put that back on people. Do you think that was effective, that point?
I do, Suzanne, and I think it was effective because that hadn't really been something that we had heard from him before. And I agree with Ana in that there's no way that we can compare the speech last night to the one he either did in 2004 or in 2008. 2008 was lightning in a bottle, and they know that they couldn't try to recreate that. What he did was very pragmatic. I call it poetic pragmatism because he did have that poetic flourish, but he was also very pragmatic. He asked for people to take ownership with him of that hope and change. And in doing that, he sort of was Kennedy-esque in saying, we're in this together. We shouldn't ask how we can do this alone, but how we can do this together. It was sort of a change on the famous Kennedy line. And I also think he was humble. He talked about his failings, and that's something that we haven't really heard from this president. So I do think he was effective in what he needed to do last night in asking voters to give him another 4 years, because change doesn't happen as quickly as the big hole that we put ourselves in, frankly, because of the Republican strategies that all of the Democrats have been talking about this week.
And he put it back
I think
on.
he sounded a lot more like Carolyn Kennedy, Carolyn Kennedy, who was one of the flatter speakers of the night than he did a Ted Kennedy or a John F. Kennedy. But it was Kennedy.
Let's look at that. Let's look when he actually turned this thing back on Mitt Romney. Let's listen to this part.
All they have to offer is the same prescriptions they've had for the last 30 years. Have a surplus? Try a tax cut. Deficit too high. Try another. Feel a cold coming on? Take 2 tax cuts, roll back some regulations, and call us in the morning.
So, Ana, he's making the case here that the Romney campaign, the Republicans really, they're not really empathetic here. That, you get sick, you catch a cold, we're going to make it worse off for you. Do you think that this idea, this notion that they're using Clinton and math, that they are making sense here, that they're laying out this effective argument that if you just do the math, that the Republicans have not done what they need to do in terms of the economy and creating jobs?
Look, that was a good line, and that's part of what's got to be on a convention speech, some memorable lines, some good lines. That was one of the good lines he had last night. I tell you, Suzanne, after 2 weeks of back-to-back conventions, I'm ready to take 2 aspirin myself and call you in December. But, you know, that being said, look, he's, you know, it's, yeah, they're talking about math. But then we see the job numbers today, and we got to talk about math again. It's very hard to put a positive spin in the job numbers we just saw. And it also draws a stark, dramatic difference between the pageantry, the flair, the speeches, all the words we've seen, and what's really happening in American households today.
And Maria, weigh in very quickly here. Go ahead, but I want you to also weigh in on the Michigan governor, Jennifer Granholm, the former Michigan governor, and her dramatic, impassioned speech that she had.
You know, maybe if you give us a lot of Red Bull, we can start impersonating the Michigan governor.
And to that point, I actually think she did serve up a lot of red meat to all the lions in the room. And so I think in that sense, she was very effective. But to go back to the president's speech, look, he knew that today's job numbers probably weren't going to be what we wanted to. And so I think, again, he rose to the occasion and asking us, look, tough decisions. I'm asking you to work with me. I never promised that this would be easy. And Romney, frankly, left an opening because he's never asked anybody to put any skin in the game except the middle class whose programs the Romney-Ryan budget cuts. And their skin is already raw. So I think that in that choice of vision, his speech, along with all the other speeches, was very effective.
All right. Thank you, both of you. Red Bull and aspirin. That's the takeaway here, obviously, from both of the conventions. You guys are the last one standing out there in Charlotte.
I agree with that.
Michigan governor served a lot more Red Bull than red meat.
All right. Thank you both. Good to see you. One of the most emotional moments of the convention, and one of my favorite moments, actually, is when the surprise guest took the stage. This is former Congressman Gabby Giffords, the Arizona Democrat who was seriously injured in a shooting last year. It is amazing, her recovery, if you see her there. Her close friend, Debbie Wasserman Schultz, of course, helped her across the stage, and she led the Pledge of Allegiance. Just listen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, liberty and justice for all.
It was pretty amazing. I mean, a lot of folks in the conventional crying at that moment. Wasserman Schultz herself, her dear friend, has also had her own battles as well. She had breast cancer. She has survived breast cancer, and you see the two of them there embracing.